Greetings, everyone. Buitiguyo. Bill Flores, Buitiguyo. Watu 80, Buitiguyo. Good evening. Robert Press, good evening. Hope everyone is doing great. Haven't been on here for a while. The month of February just came and went for me. But happy to see all you guys on the chat. Buitiguyo home soon. Mother Galua. Madume Wama. Yeah. Did that Facebook. Logo Woguti. Agoba na logo buidula. Lodi sunkate home. You're doing your own home soon. You better go. So today's conversation, we're gonna have a discussion about reparation. What does that look like for Garifuna people? How would it work out? Who will we claim reparations from? Something I've been following the presidential elections, and it's something that just got me pondering. I mean, what if? What case can we make for reparations? I know that CARICOM has a case against Britain, but that's CARICOM. As a community, we should explore reparations as well. So I'm waiting for brother Trevor Palacios to talk about this. So let's have a discussion about this. How we could apply the theme of reparations to the Garifuna community. Because we do have a case. We do have a case. I have to plug in my family as usual, use them as context. I mean, my grandfather came here in 1954, fleeing Honduras. He wasn't necessarily was fleeing war or anything, but it's just he didn't see Honduras to be a good fit for him in terms of work and other opportunities like education and just making a life for himself. Honduras wasn't it. And his family had land in Honduras. My great-grandfather, Laureano Blanco Ariola, he purchased land because he was a mayor of Aguan at one time. So he amassed a great deal of land, and he was also a merchant marine. So based on our history, we definitely have to explore the whole concept of reparations. Good evening, Varlene Pitts, Buitiguyo. Lilian Palacios, Buitiguyo. I've been watching the presidential elections and a lot of candidates. I've been following the Republicans and the Democrats. There's currently 11 Democrats in the race. Well, that's vying for the presidential nomination. 3 candidates already proposed reparations for the African American community. That's very interesting. There was one candidate that proposed $100 billion to a community of 40 million. That's roughly around 20,000 per family. How would they distribute that? Something that I automatically thought about the Garifuna community. We're about 1 million worldwide. What does that look like for us? So I just wanted to have a discussion about that with Trevor. Just waiting for him to get on so we could start. Because Honduras for us as a community has been a very, very interesting experience. The more I research the history and the more I engage with other persons and other communities, we're We survived Honduras. Honduras has been a state of constant terror for us. I mean, we made the best out of it as much as we can. And we're still under a particular state of terrorism in Honduras, namely over this land issue. That we're currently having, which has become deadly. They were intense on a couple of persons' lives in December. There was a brother that was executed in Mexico. There's different conflicting stories revolving that, but my assumption is that he was involved in the land grab. Well, he was pretty vocal in terms of what's going on in regarding our land in Honduras. Hermano Giovanni, buenas noches, Buitiguño. Brother Egbert, Buitiguño. Hey, Isabel, hope everything is well. So, I'm constantly thinking, and I'm constantly, throwing things around in my head in regards to our cultural experience, my community's experience in Central America. I feel like we never recovered from the exile. We've never recovered from the exile. I mean, we tried to become part of Honduras society, but that didn't really work out for us. The way that we wanted to expect it to work out. It from what I see, it hasn't. A lot of us have migrated to America and started our lives elsewhere, namely in America. So, Brother Bill Flores, we should be given reparations for the taking of Udoming, just like the Jews deserve and receive reparations for their Holocaust. The same was attempted towards us. And I totally agree. That's the same argument that the African American community is saying. They've been here since 1619. They've endured convict leasing. They've endured all these systematic atrocities towards them that affected them, actually. All these things, these governmental policies was created to affect them in particular. And I see the pushback. I'm listening to a lot of the talking points of these presidential candidates here in America, and there's a lot of pushback against that. Here's a community who practically built the country, who made it passable for us. Even other black immigrants like us, the Garinagu, we're black immigrants. I mean, we have a country. Well, we had a country technically that we were exiled from. Then we made our way to Honduras. Well, we were forced to settle in Honduras. Then we come over here. I mean, we definitely have to be, in my opinion, in solidarity with the African American community in their quest to get reparations from this government. And I've seen and I've heard a lot of disturbing commentary regarding why they should not get reparations. And that's a totally different conversation for another day. But it's something that we have to explore. The Garinagu from St. Vincent, the 5 communities there, the 5 communities, I believe 6 communities in Nicaragua, the 55 in Honduras, the 10 in Belize, and the 2 in Guatemala. We need to have that conversation. I think it's vital for us. I mean, we've become content in poverty. I think so. And I know that's a very controversial remark, but that's our reality. We have been content living in this constant state of poverty in these nations. So how do we change that? One way is reparations. Another way is education. I mean, we have extraordinary that live in Central America that found a way to make it in a very racist society. As in, Nicaragua, as in Belize, and so forth. Pastor
Pastor
Kubuitiguyo,
ko boyti ko
Namune.
yon lebu yon edebe man.
Who would get that? Awaya Dumia, how many people logo reparations? Nadumia home logo here na la wisukate ya meriga ho mutuha buseti urue amaya.
Yeah.
So buseti na dumia logo. How does reparations and how likely is it for us, for Garifuna people? And what is your thoughts around that? How would that look like for us, basing it on our history, being forced from Urume, staying in, well, being forced to live in Beckway and Baliso for 10 months, seeing our relatives die.
Right.
We saw half of them die, and then get relocated to Punta Gorda, Roatan, and then making our way to the mainland. And once we get to Honduras, we experience another set of circumstances. We experienced war. We experienced the San Juan massacre. I mean, it's like we've been living in a constant terror in Honduras. I mean, we don't have Honduras. Don't get me wrong. Honduras is a very wealthy country in terms of minerals and other natural resources.
Right.
But we've never been given a chance, or that particular component hasn't been accessible to us. We have land, but as far as to develop the resources, we deserve reparations. And I just wanted to know what was your thought on that, because I've been following the presidential elections here, and many candidates from the Democratic Party, which has been the traditional party of the Garifuna people here in America, they've been making the rounds in terms of of talking about this whole concept of reparations. And many of them are not favorable to it. I mean, they throw out numbers like 100 billion by she's relatively unknown candidate. Her name is Marianne Williamson, I believe.
Okay.
And she said that African American people deserve reparations, $100 billion. That's a number that she threw out there. That translates, if you divide that into 40 million persons, that's about $20,000 per person, I believe.
Yeah, but we don't want to. I don't think that a check. I mean, let's say if reparations happen, I don't think a check should be written and distributed to individuals because, you know, I think something as a reparation or something called a reparation, and we would have to look up the definition of it, would mean that it would be set up under a trustee where there is maybe some interest that the people can live off of, but you just don't go in there and take the money and then cut it out and divide it amongst the people. But to answer your question, we have to be realistic with ourselves as Garif for the people. We're black. We're black. You know what I'm saying? And there isn't a group of black people that can historically say we've received reparations. You know what I'm saying? Anywhere. So first, there has to be one group of black people that we could say have received reparations for us to believe, for me to believe, Brother Pablo, as Trevor Palacio, that we as Garifuna people can get reparations. But
The Maasai, let me get in. Let me get in there. I just want to point to you that the Maasai of Kenya received reparations from the British government.
they did.
Yeah, they have.
Okay, when? When?
Hold on, I could tell you that. But before I go there, let me give you the definition of reparation. According to Merriam-Webster, the making of amends for wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged.
Mhm.
That's a real basic definition
Yeah, it's too
of it.
it's actually too basic because again, and what I was talking about, we just can't. If we cut checks, then I don't think reparations will play the purpose that it was destined to play. Because I'm gonna get my $20,000. I'm gonna pay some bills, maybe buy me a car or something. It's not much you can do with $20,000 nowadays, anyway. But if we were to take that
Right.
money and transfer it over to institutions and establish businesses that can make money and keep money generating, you know what I'm saying, and establish an economic base for the people, then that would be a good thing. But what I wanted to allude to was this. In regards to us as Garifuna people, and this goes to African Americans right here in the United States of America who have been talking about reparations for quite some time. Until there is an organized leadership, and I keep going back to that, Pablo. You know what I'm saying? I always say until there is, because when it comes to reparations, say for instance, if Garifuna people were given reparations right now, who would it be distributed to? Any individual that says I'm Garifuna? You understand what I'm saying? Same thing with the African American community out here right now. There is too much divide in the thinking around reparations. There's some black people who are 100% against it. They like, I don't want a handout, when they don't understand that it's actually theirs. You know what I'm saying? It's something that's owed to you. It's not a handout. But can Garifuna people get reparations from the British and the French first and foremost? You know, the first invaders that came into our territories and caused the division that we're dealing with today, right? We could deal with the Spanish and what has happened with us in Honduras right now, ever since we've been there, right? Because the Spanish were in rule during the 1937 massacre of the Garifuna brothers and sisters in San Juan, right? And as a matter of fact, I believe they still have a lot of rule in Honduras to this very day. But we could get reparations from them, I believe, only when we establish a group of leadership, such as what we're doing with the International Garifuna Council, one that can show up as a governing body representing the entire Garifuna interest, not just Belizeans, not just Nicaraguans, not just Hondurans. They come and say we represent the interest of Garifuna people worldwide. And we are owed reparations for what happened in St. Vincent between the period of, you know this history better than I do, or was it the 1500s when they started infiltrating into our communities there?
Well, they started. The French were in the Lesser Antilles since the
Okay.
1600s.
So ever since that period of time, start breaking bread for that period of time to the period of time that we were exiled from St. Vincent, where the French and the British no longer had anything to do with us. So between 1600s and 1797, you owe us 300 years of reparations. France and Britain. But again, we would have a body there. You would have gone to France. Our other historians would have gone to France. Our other researchers would have done their due diligence to make sure that we have the paperwork that's necessary, because that's one of the first things that the ICJ is going to ask for. Do you have proof that you were actually victimized by the French and the British in between 1600 and 1797? You know what I'm saying? So we need to have all of that in order. We need to have a body that's going to represent us in order before we can even talk about reparations, bro. You know, there was a couple of brothers, a brother by the name of Wellington Ramos, out of New York. He went to St. Vincent, one man band, one man show, maybe with one or two other associates. And he went to St. Vincent, bro, and asked for reparations. No, as a matter of fact, he didn't ask for it. He demanded reparations. Hey man,
Well, he went with one other person that I'm aware
right,
of.
right. But I only know for sure that it was Wellington behind that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to mention anyone else's name. You know what I'm saying? Unless I know for sure. So it's a fact that it was Wellington who went out there, demanded reparations, but it proved my point. How can you go demanding something when you are ill prepared to demand it in any way?
Well, that's up to us. That's up to us. I mean, that it may not happen during our generation. It may happen in the next generation, but we must start having these discussions. We must having these talks. I mean, because again, I got to use myself an
Mm-hmm.
example. You know, putting myself through school, work, study, job, a job off campus, and a RA. That's like three jobs
Mm-hmm.
just to put myself through
Right.
school. You know what
It's
I'm
a
saying? Like
sacrifice.
that's like it's a lot of people. I
Yeah.
understand that, but why? Why? Why can't Garifuna people be like other
No,
communities in which we can live and prosper in our own
I mean, that
countries?
has to be a rhetorical question, man. The system in which we live in is they're colonies, bro, and colonies were established without you and I in mind. And there is still colonial thinking in 2019. That's the why. You know, like I said, that has to be a rhetorical question right there, brother, because it's clear why we don't have the resources that we need in our communities. It's also clear why in 2019, Canadian investors could go into Honduras, could go to Belize, right? Could go to Guatemala, to go to Nicaragua, go into our communities and practically do whatever they want to do. And here we are as an autonomous community, and people are doing whatever they want to do with us. We know why. Colonialism still has a
Yeah.
strong hold, bro.
Well, the thing is, like, I think with us, we need to have like a civil war within us.
Uh,
The people that are with Garifuna Dual
yeah.
and the people that are Garifuna merchants, because we it seems like the Garifuna merchants are winning with selling our lands.
I don't know. I don't want to
Right
use.
now, it seems like they're winning.
Let's be careful what we say. You know, when you said a civil war, you know, let's be cautious. You know, we are live. We're this is a media system, and I hear what you're saying. All I'm just kind of reiterating. You know, what the Pablo don't mean an actual civil war. I don't think. You know what
No,
I'm
not
saying?
an actual
Right.
war. A war, Trevor, you do understand that a war doesn't necessarily have to be violent. It's
I
psychological.
understand.
I mean, it's spiritual.
Right. No, I
You
just don't
know,
want.
that's what we're doing. Right now, we're having a spiritual war right now. I mean, that's evident
Right.
in terms of all these religions that have infiltrated a lot of Garifuna communities in Central
Right.
America. We shifted their understanding of who we
Right.
are or who Garifuna people are.
Right.
And that starts the colonization process
And that what
or has started the colonization
that
process.
maintains it. That actually maintains it. Religion is the number one component that maintains colonialism. I repeat. And this is the first time that this thought has ever crossed my mind, and it just happened in this moment. But it is the church that continues to perpetuate the colonial mentality. Because if you think about it, Pablo, when they landed here, they had their Bibles in their hand. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to create a new Christian community. You know what I'm saying? All 13
Well,
colonies,
they needed converts.
they needed, exactly.
They needed
They needed
converts.
converts, and all 13 colonies were all Christian colonies. You know what I'm saying? With Puritans, etc., right? With an intent to convert everybody, because initially the first thing they tried to do with the Native Americans was to convert them. That was the first thing they tried to do before they went ahead and killed them off. You understand what I'm saying? They were having a conversion issue. They were able to convert a couple, right? And I guarantee you, the ones they successfully converted stayed alive because they were in a church somewhere. You understand what I'm saying? hear the underlying tone of what I'm saying, because today, 2019, it is still our leaders, and we spoke about this the last time we were live in Belize. The good is being called devil worshipped in Belize. And it's a white man calling the devil worship by the name of Scott Stern. But we have Garifuna leaders supporting that. You understand what I'm saying? So if the house burned down in Belize, the Garifuna leaders that is supporting Scott Stern, he wouldn't get burnt down. You understand what I'm saying? He's going to be safe because he's on the side of the enemy.
See, that's the thing. Like, we have to definitely assert ourselves. I mean, it's time that we started doing that.
True.
We have to assert ourselves. We have to say we're Garifuna. This is not part of our culture, and we're not going to accept it. The problem, and you already know the problem is too many Garifuna people are, they just want to get along with
Yeah.
people. They don't want to, ruffle any
Right.
feathers.
Right.
We want to be accepted.
Right. We want
to be accepted by the dominant society where we live at, and that's the problem.
Exactly. That is.
We lose ourselves in that acceptance process.
That's one of the problems, bro. I agree. I agree with you on that. It is.
So how do we reverse that? How do we have enough confidence in ourselves as Garifuna people that, this is who we are. We've been like this for ages, and you can't change us for anything.
By doing what we're doing right now with this live conversation, talking about the beauty of what it means to be Garifuna, talking about the potentials that we have as a people, talking about all of the roadblocks that get into the way of that potential manifesting. You know what I'm saying? That the solution is happening right now as you and I speak, as far as I'm concerned. This is the solution.
I've been listening to some of the language that the conversation revolving African Americans and reparations, and I hear the word radical a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the presidential candidates, they think that reparations will be too radical for African Americans. I believe that same narrative will be applied to us, because I think there's also a racial issue as well when it comes to giving out reparations.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Maasai, they got it. That's an ethnic group.
All right, that's one. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, but it's not that many of us. You know what I'm saying? The reason the Japanese got it was because the atomic bomb.
And the Chinese too. The Chinese.
Okay, and the Chinese got it. Okay, the Chinese, the Japanese, Chinese because of the concentration camps here. Japanese because of the atomic bomb. The Jews because they white. You understand? And us, or the African American brothers and sisters, they not going to get it. Because the thing about it is, and we had this conversation in my church today. If anyone is looking for a religion to be a part of, and I'm anti-religion, guys, because I think religion is a big problem. Okay? But I still have a philosophy that I adhere to. And it's called Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalism. I was sitting in a circle of about 15, 20 Caucasian people today, and we were talking about white privilege. We were talking about white privilege. You understand what I'm saying? And the reality of it is something that exists for real and that continues to take away resources or block other groups, ethnic groups, as they would say, from getting resources that outright belong to them. So can we get it, Pablo? Yeah, we could get it, but we're black. you know what I'm saying? That's the first reality that we as Garifuna people have to accept, embrace. And I would also recommend that we as Garifuna people We get our shit together, bro. We should get our shit together. We should align ourselves mentally as internal. Remember that civil war that you were talking about? There should be an internal mental civil war where we separate, not causing division, but identifying those who mean well, identifying those who are really going to follow the duty and honor the commission of serving humanity and not personal interest, from those who actually do it for the show, who actually do it because they want the accolade, they want the resources that come with the position, which a lot of them do. You know what I'm saying? We need to that's where we need to start. That's where we need to start, by separating, or I don't want to use the word separate, by figuring out and determining who is really our boon amudunu, our buni amudununi.
You know what the issue with that is, Trevor? Because you have families who are divided.
Yeah,
Because I believe that we're too small of a community.
we are.
We got to talk about per family basis now. Like, we have cousins that are Garifuna Dual 100 all the way down to Wanara Punta and all the other traditional cultural. They embrace the other cultural tenets of our culture.
Right.
But then you got these other group of people that want to be part of this dominant society that totally throw their grandmother under the bus just to be a part of that particular society. And they end up the same family.
Yeah.
This is the same family that we're talking about.
Colonialism. That's colonialism at best. You just painted a picture of the Stockholm syndrome. You just painted a picture of just simply not knowing that you are a victim or continued victim of colonialism. Right there, you just painted it in a few words. And it's sad, to be honest, because I believe that Garifuna people have genuine love for each other. You know what I'm saying? But they just don't have an example that they can follow. They don't have an example that they know is genuine and is going to lead them where they know we can and we know we shall be as a people prosperous, successful, captains of industry. And I believe, Pablo, I do personally believe this. I personally believe that we could be integrated into society and still maintain the integrity of who we are as a people. I believe that. You know what I'm saying? I personally believe that we could be integrated.
Right. I mean, it's these two incidents that happened.
The integrity of who we are as people.
These two incidents that happened in December and January got me thinking. Wow, I mean, we're easily. It just got me thinking how vulnerable we are. To be honest with you, you got me thinking that we're very, very vulnerable, man. I mean,
vulnerable in what way, man? What do you mean by that? Vulnerable in what way?
Well, this thing with brother Carlos Guillen.
Okay.
This is another Garifuna person that was beefing because the Canadians handed him some cash and he promised them some land for that cash. Illegal land. And Celso Guillen was in the way of that sale.
Right.
And we have the other brother that was speaking with Wani Led that was speaking about what's going on. And he ends up executed. I mean, it's just the vulnerability that we have in Honduras. It's very, very disturbing.
No, it's because we don't have. It's like, and you got to feel me on this, man. When we established the International Garifuna Council, we're going to have, as a government, we're going to have the resources to hire a badass law firm that we will be able to fly our attorneys over to Honduras and just fix that just like that. Okay? There is no force behind us. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is no, it's like we're a group of people without guidance, without leadership. Okay? Where we are. We may have patronatos, but their job is not really to lead the community anywhere. It's just to maintain it. This is it. Maintain it. At best, right now, what they're doing is making sure we don't lose the land, right? It's now that Orphanet, thank God Orphanet is there, that they're now growing coconut so that they can start selling oil, and they're creating the economic source right there in Vallecito with the people that they work on the land with, that they're doing something with. You know, that right there is proof that when someone like an orphanage comes, it makes a difference on behalf of the Garifuna communities. So when we have something like the International Garifuna Council that's going to have representation in Belize, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Nicaragua, when one thing happens in Honduras, all of these people are activated. Okay? And once the Garifuna leader in Nicaragua is activated, they activate their people, right? They inform them what's going on. Now, all of a sudden, the entire community is informed. Letters can go out. Phone calls could go out. Letting it be known that you just can't try to kill Celso Guillon simply because he wanted to protect the land rights of the Garifuna people in his community. And you won't get away with it because there is a force behind Celso. You understand what I'm saying? And again, I'm not talking about an orphanage. Orphanage is a group. And a group can only do so much. The International Garifuna Council is a government. You understand? We want to issue IDs, Pablo. As we establish the body of the council, one of the first things we're going to do after we meet at the United Nations and get ratified as an official nation is we're going to issue out Garifuna IDs, okay? Which will let the government of Honduras know, Belize, Nicaragua, or whatever it is it may be, on the back of each card is going to specifically say that Pablo Blanco is an indigenous man and that he is protected under international instruments, and that if anything happens to Pablo Blanco in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Belize, wherever he's at, you have to deal with international law.
Well, see, that could tie into the whole reparations, right?
Yeah, ultimately,
in regards
along the line, though.
To what we propose, right. Like we should get certain exemptions as a community, right, regards to travel, because we used to travel all of the Caribbean and Central America
freely,
without any documentation, because that's technically our territory.
Look, that's Article 32 through 36 of the United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People. You're right. It's specific not only Central America. Okay, Pablo, if you have a cousin in France and they're Garifuna, you have the right. Now, mind you, you still have to go through the process, the visa or whatever it is, to get there, right? There's still a process that needs to be followed, but you can't be denied. You have to go through the process, but they can't deny you. You understand? And that's what the UNDRIP specifically says about Garifuna people. Or indigenous people rather, but now that we're Garifuna and we're talking about ourselves and we're educating our community, it's important that they know that. But we can't enforce any of these things. Like right now, Orphanet can't enforce the 2015 Punta Piedra Triunfo de la Cruz cases. They
Right. I think that has to go through another international body,
it already has.
like the ONU and the United
Well,
Nations. They have to put the pressure on Honduras to recognize those
they can't.
facilities. We need to push them in order to do that. That's something that the International Reparations
Could
Council
do.
could take on.
Could do. That they could do. But the body needs to be formed. It needs to be established at Hermano
Right.
Pablo. You know what I'm saying? And we really, if we're like serious about this, Pablo, we cannot put the cart before the horse. Okay? The only thing that you and I should be thinking about is the critical mass. You introduced me to the term about 2 years ago, to the term critical mass. Okay? And the
Right.
Maya people who demarcated their land in Guatemala and Belize in 2014-15, they had a critical mass that was focused on the body. That's how their land was demarcated. Okay? And the reason our land wasn't demarcated in Belize is because we didn't have a critical mass together to make it happen at that period of time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that critical mass, like I said, you can't put the cart before the horse. You know what I'm saying? The critical mass comes before any planning, any big idea, and that's the importance of attending your community meetings. That's the importance of attending the symposiums that we're having every year. The next one is going to be in Los Angeles. Pablo and I were just in Chicago with Garinagu Nation, Joseph Guerrero, Joseph Miranda, Fidelis Nunez, Sister Nana, Rodel Castillo, his wife. We were just there and we headed to Los Angeles. November 8th and 9th of 2019 is the next symposium. It's an opportunity for these people to come face to face. Okay? It's a sacrifice. Pablo, you had to pay for your flight. I had to pay for my flight. Everyone who arrived had to pay for their flight. But we understood that it's a necessary sacrifice before we could talk about the bigger fish that need to be fried.
And see, and this goes back to the economic component that you alluded to earlier, in which Ofranet was getting more involved in the the elaboration, the creation or the manufacture of the
Right.
cassave and the
Of
coconut
the
oil.
coconut oil.
And we need the economic component
We do.
in order to make this
That's
happen.
number one. I think that's number one. And if anyone is talking about establishing another goddamn group for the Garifuna community, goddamn it, create a job. Create a job. Please. Create a job. Create one job. All right? That's the best thing that we could do for the Garifuna community, Pablo. You know what I'm saying? And as the IGC, the International Garifuna Council, I want to take this moment to let everyone know we are establishing a Garifuna corporation made up of Garifuna men and women from Guatemala, Belize, Nicaragua, St. Vincent, United States, Honduras. And we're going to start with one community in Honduras. We're going to take that Garifuna corporation. Hear what I'm saying, Pablo? About 10 good men and women, we're going to come together. Each person is going to put down their $1,000. We're going to open up a grocery store in that community. Okay?
Right.
We're going to open up a grocery store and create about 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. Okay? We're going to, along with the same plan in that same community, we're going to identify some land, which we already identified the land, where we're going to begin to grow produce. Okay? Because in places like Honduras, people have to go to the city to buy chicken, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, whatever it may be. So we're going to take it back to the root of growing our own stuff. We're going to have a store where we can sell it. Okay? Inside of that same store, we're going to have a Garifuna money transfer business. You can now transfer money to your son or your daughter in that community, starting off in that community instantaneously. Right there, just like that. You contact the IGC and our group. You tell us how much money you want to send. We're going to have it set up and you'll be able to send money. Things that we're going to do, first and foremost, is create jobs.
Right, and we could also leverage technology. I'm always big on technology. We could create. This is me thinking, out there, but I don't see it too far fetched. You ever heard of PayPal?
Yeah.
So we could create a bank in a Garifuna community in which people could withdraw cash.
Yep.
By using the PayPal app.
Yeah, don't go selling the idea online, but it's around it's going to be an application that we're using to do it. It won't be PayPal, but people can still use PayPal to send money to their loved one. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Or if you're talking about a store, we could have persons from America put credit on a family member's account in Honduras.
Right.
So they could use that to purchase goods and services. Right. But again, I always said that we have to be self-sufficient as a community.
Yeah.
Like, we got to go back to how our ancestors were. They were self-sufficient. They didn't really rely on the government for anything.
Including reparations. And
made things.
Including reparations.
Made things happen.
Right. Exactly. I'm not against reparations, but if I were to seek reparations, I would seek reparations after I got my shit together. You understand what I'm saying? I wouldn't try to seek reparations to get my shit together. You with me? All right? By the time we seek reparations from the British and the Spanish, we're going to have a fully operational government, period, by the time we seek it, period. We won't go half-stepping.
Well, this is the one of the building blocks towards it. This conversation that we're having, on this platform, hopefully the persons that are watching, they tag people and share it, because this conversation, this should have been had a while ago. I was talking with some brothers online about this, and how would that look like for us in terms of reparations? I mean, not only the money, but certain exemptions should be applied to Garifuna people.
Are there any messages you could read there so that you could read some of the messages that's...
Yeah, let me... Brother Baba Clay. ¿Cómo está, hermano?
Baba.
¿Cómo está, hermano?
Salute. Salute, Baba. Salute.
And we got Selena Herrera, Educate My Brothers. Great forum. Thank you, Selena.
Right. Thank you.
Hope you guys could share this.
Right.
Because we need to keep this conversation going. Right. I mean, this is not like for us. I mean, we're such our experience in the Americas has been so different from other communities, Trevor. I mean, again, race does play a role. Yeah,
it does. But it's been.
If you look at us, we are black.
Yeah, it's been different. It's been different, but it's been the same.
Until we start speaking Garifuna.
Exactly.
Until we start speaking Garifuna. People will be like, what the hell is he saying?
Yeah, because
he's talking mumble jumble,
Because when the police beat me up and beat me down in 1997, they were beating down another black American when they beat me down. You understand what I'm saying? It didn't matter that I was Garifuna. It didn't matter that I spoke 3 languages. Hell, they didn't know. They were just beating another black man. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, I had my run-ins with the cops. I mean, one night, I was with my friends and we were going out, and the cops stopped us and they were asking us where we were going. You guys look too nice to be outside. I mean, it was like some crazy types of questions that they were asking us. There was one time I was stopped and I had a black Ford Explorer, and the cop claimed that I ran the light. My son was in the backseat. He was like 3 years old in his booster seat, and my friend was on the passenger seat. They searched my car with my son in the car and put handcuffs on myself and my friend.
Yeah.
And searched my car. It was like 15 cops. There was the captain with the white shirt. I mean, it was so demoralizing. I mean, it was so like belittling. It was so. It's an experience that I will remember
Yeah,
that
you
like
can't you
forever.
can't forget it, man. It leaves a blueprint, a constant reminder in your head that, like I said at church today, we were talking about white privilege, and we were talking about, in particular, that as a black man named Trevor Palacio, I've been hired for a job through my resume. Okay, but when I showed up for the job, the interest that they had over the phone and everything fizzled out like that. Because Trevor, you would think, is a white boy. Palacio, you would think, is some Latino or some Hispanic guy, right? So here comes my black ass, and it just twists everything up. It just twists everything up. It's just, and the reason we're discussing that is because, again, we're still talking about reparations and what the likelihood of getting reparations may be. And one of the challenges that we're going to deal with in regards to getting reparations is we can't overcome being black. And we also cannot overcome the bigotry that is manifest right here in the West more than anywhere else. It's also out there in the East. But the ones that owe us reparations for the most part are Western powers. You know what I'm saying? To date, for the most part. And we're not talking
Right.
about our African American brothers and sisters. We're talking about ourselves as Garifuna people.
But I see the commonality between us and the African American community in terms of how they've been oppressed and abused by the system.
But
So we have that
oh, we got
commonality.
that.
I mean, because I'm thinking about my grandfather in the 50s in Honduras. I mean, the conversation that I had with him, he didn't really talk about his experience in Honduras
Mm.
in terms of growing
Yeah,
up.
it was probably too hurtful.
He rarely talked about it because it was
Hurtful.
that much of
Yeah, yeah.
a terror for
Right,
him. And then I hear stories of men from Aguan going to Tegucigalpa, how they had to clean shoes and be called boy and all these degrading things happen to
right.
them. I mean, what's the difference between that experience and the Jim Crow South?
Nothing.
It's not much of experience. What's funny is that in Panama in the 50s and 60s, they had black communities that these are the descendants of persons that worked in the Panama
Right,
Canal,
right,
and they were called all type of things, just like Jim Crow South,
right.
because the Americans were there.
The-
The treatment that they gave African Americans here, they did the same thing for the Afro-Antillean community in Panama.
right. Racism is a white American
So
thing. Racism is a white American thing. Racism is as old as the slave trade, and it started in the 1400s. And racism kicked in, I would say, maybe 50 to 100 years later, when they started looking at themselves superior. Because remember, initially what they wanted to do was convert people so that they could be a part of their religion. But they ultimately came down to subdue them, to break them down, to enslave them, right? And take away all of their integrity. But this whole racism is a white American thing. That's why it happens. There was a lady who said that she didn't experience racism really, and she was from England, right? She said she really didn't experience racism until she came to the United States. And she's white. And she said that it was so much prevalent here in the Americas that it just became a part of her fiber of living too, because white privilege comes with racism as a part of it. You know what I'm saying?
well, the thing is, white privilege it works with the criminal justice
Yeah, it's
system.
a
I mean,
hand in hand.
it's
Yeah,
right, but look at who set that system up. I mean, that system wasn't set up for African American people, so they become victims of that system. I mean,
exactly.
that's the state narrative for us too.
But
When you look at Fermin Asu,
mm,
who was executed by a cop over here in the Bronx. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Right. That
I always say it, man. We're very vulnerable to a lot of things. But any closing remarks, Trevor, before we head out?
yeah. I would say that people get politically conscious. If you want reparations, if you want resources in your community, political consciousness and awareness is the definition of self-determination. Get politically conscious. Join us in Los Angeles, California, March the 23rd, with the International Garifuna Council and the Garifuna 2020 Consortium. We're going to be having a meeting there at Auntie Martha's house. We're asking you to join us. And we're also working on a meeting in New York City. Pablo, Germán Cayetano, Carmen are looking to meet and talk a little bit. And then we can look forward to something going on there. We're working on something in Houston, all over the place. So starting in Los Angeles, the Garifuna Consortium is back with our first event for this year, March the 23rd at Auntie Martha's. Out there, boom, amudinu. Say that, man, Pablo.
So that, man, before you go, I gotta read this comment by Sister Lisa Chamilio. And thank you for the comment.
Thank you, Sister Lisa.
Sister Lisa. I wonder if there are Garifuna attorneys that would represent us if we wanted to proceed with reparations, and or if we want to get past research within our community. Very interesting comment.
Yeah.
Very interesting comment, because we have a lot of qualified persons in the community. But again, the attachment to the culture is not necessarily that good.
Right.
Or that green.
Right. But they would also, attorneys would also want us to have our, look, I believe, yes, Lisa, that there are Garifuna attorneys and legal thinkers that are ready to step up and help our Garifuna community. But these legal thinkers would first say that before we can step up and do anything for y'all have to align a few things. Things have to be aligned, Pablo. You know what I'm saying? Before we could go to an attorney, we have to have some things aligned first and foremost. Because there's a Garifuna attorney that just joined our team, Sister Jumat, Judith Mejia out of New York City, right? It took her a while to join the International Garifuna Council and the consortium because she wanted to see us consist and persist. Be consistent and be persistent in our movement. Not just be an overnight thing. We come and then we go, right? We don't even have a plan in mind, and we're talking about graduates doing this and doing that and doing that. Okay? When she and I spoke, she made me realize, Sister Lisa and Brother Pablo, that there are attorneys out there. There are doctors out there who want to get into healthcare in regards to our Garifuna community. There are educators out there who want to educate. But these people are organized. They're used to being organized, Pablo. And they don't want to be turned off, or they don't want to tell our people, you know what? Y'all full of shit, man. Y'all disorganized. It's not much that we could do with you. So they're there.
Yeah, there's a certain level of organization that they're used to, and the community doesn't have.
Right. And they're right. And they're absolutely right. Because look, if we're gonna come on, guys, reparations, again, I repeat, Orphaner is struggling to get a 2015 verdict enforced in Honduras. Punta Piedra and Triunfo de la Cruz. That's just a court case regarding usurpation of land. That's not reparations, my brother. You understand what I'm saying? So if we're having a difficulty, the International Criminal Justice Court is having a difficulty getting Honduras to enforce these two criminal cases. We can't be talking about reparations, y'all. We're not ready.
Well, Trevor, you gotta keep in mind, Honduras is basically a failed state. I mean,
Uh,
all the institutions of Honduras, starting from the political throughout all their major institutions, is failed.
Yeah, true.
They have failed
True.
ever since the 2009 coup. So this is like a win for the community
Right.
is like at the back
It's in
burner
the back burner.
when it comes to Honduras.
Yeah, it is.
It's not something that they're gonna pay attention to. I mean, these last elections that happened almost 2 years ago, December of 2017, in which the president, since he controlled Congress and
Senate.
the election, the electoral system, he basically stole the elections from Nasrallah. I mean, that's just.
But there.
Let me say this: Honduras for us has always been a terrorist state.
Look, the best.
I don't see anything positive that we've accomplished as a community from living in Honduras.
I agree with you. The best thing that Honduras can do for the Garifuna people is to leave them the fuck alone. That's the best thing they can do. Period.
Well, we have to fight for
No. You're right about that. I'm talking about leave us alone. If there are any resources that are due to us, give us those. Don't allow rapists like Canadian Randy Jurgensen, Patrick Forsyth, and Larry Forsyth to come in and do whatever they want to in our communities when they are the force that could stop them. You understand what I'm saying? Those are the best things. I don't think, like right now, look at Miguel Alvarez and Colon. Look at Carlos Martinez in Rio Tinto. Look at the great things that they are doing in both of those communities. The government has nothing to do with it. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that goes back to us being self-sufficient.
That's my point.
Which we always had. Even bringing electricity to the community. Yeah. That's a product of the fundraisers that I remember the Giriga community, the community from Santa Fe here, with Mogama and this lady Dionisa Maya. It was all women.
That's the point.
That were behind that and bringing electricity to this community in Honduras back in the 90s. Right. We got electricity in the 90s.
Yeah.
Trevor, that just go to show you where we at in the 90s.
I remember, bro.
This is like 29 years ago. I mean,
yeah.
We do have a long way, but I think it's persons that are part of our generation and younger that's gonna push them.
It is. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's why any young person that is listening right now, pay close attention because we're looking for you. Pablo and I are looking for you so that we can give you the information that we have gained, continue to gain. We want to put it in your hands so that you could elevate the Garifuna community to the next level. Because I personally believe, man, that our ancestors, man, the fact that I think books mess things up because our ancestors weren't readers, but they knew that the most important asset was land. And they also knew that it's always been the most important asset. And they know that it will always be the most important asset. You understand what I'm saying? They knew that, But we don't know that, and that's why we're selling our land off. You know what I'm saying? That's the people right now. But in closing, as we tried to close earlier, I want to thank everyone for joining us here. Excuse me, Trevor Palacio, Mabriga, Garinagu, California. And big brother Pablo, thank you for bringing me on again. And we're going to try to get the rhythm going again with Mabriga shows. We've been having some technical issues where we feel that we have been targeted, where we really could not go on air. But we hope that has come to an end, and we can continue to bring you more. Sorry, Pablo. So that we can continue to bring you more news with Mabriga Garinagu.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have been targeted.
I do feel that way. The next show, I'm still trying to confirm a date
with Dr. Luther Castillo.
Okay.
the brother from City Boya that started the first Garifuna Hospital in
Right.
Honduras, and Dr. Adrian Fraser. He's a historian from Urumi.
Okay.
He has a lot of information from the British and a whole host of knowledge regarding the experience of the Caribs and the Garinagu in Urumi. So I'm trying to confirm the dates with those two brothers so we can have a conversation. But other than that, thank you for your time, Trevor. I mean, this conversation again, I gotta reiterate, we must start having these
Yes, sir.
discussions.
Agreed.
We must have having these discussions and see how we can organize towards getting reparations and getting all these exemptions so that people, Garifuna people, could stop
Right.
suffering. Because I mean, every time I just saw a video about a month ago about Garifuna people crossing the Rio Grande with children. I mean, I know it happens, but I haven't seen the picture.
But
I seen the video of it, and it was just, I don't want to say disturbing.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think, to be honest
Right.
with you. But that's a different conversation.
Right.
Trevor, any closing comments?
Hey, I'll born Murano. I'll the boning a Murano.
Igual, Amurununi. I'll hopefully see you guys next week. Buitigunyo Hosu Madago, Ibirugo. Waduna me. Le abaya sema.
How about you, man?
Abaya